Good afternoon. My name is Julie Amdy. I'd like to welcome you all to the CCSQ Data Analytics Fall 2023 Datacamp. This is a two-day event that will be filled with multiple sessions designed to educate those in our community and others interested in data and analytics. I'm going to kick things off with a video to share more information about our event today.
Welcome everyone to the 2023 Fall Data Camp, a multi-session, multi-day event focused on educating the CCSQ Data and Analytics user community. During this event, we will be exploring our theme of leveraging the analytics toolbox as we discuss the latest updates and enhancements to Databricks, SAS Viya, and QuickSight that you can leverage for your analytical work. We will also explore other topics related to the centralized data repository's data and CCSQ's future vision for the roadmap, including the new CCSQ Data and Analytics portal. Before we get started, let's review some logistical information about the event and our sessions. There's a Confluence page solely dedicated to this event, where you can find the schedule for both days and the session summaries. Access this page within your meeting invite. We are also recording every session and will make the recording and meeting materials available on Confluence shortly after the event. A Q&A will be held at the end of each session. To submit a question for these Q&As, use the Zoom chat feature. We ask that you stay on mute just to minimize background noise and keep us on schedule. Please also refrain from sharing your video camera to reduce distractions. Lastly, short breaks will be held between sessions, right after the Q&As. There's one Zoom link for the entire event, allowing you to be able to jump in and out in order to best accommodate your schedule. Thank you for joining us. Stay tuned for the agenda.
Okay, so reviewing today's agenda. For our kickoff session today, we have a CCSQ DNA roadmap and vision with Kenneth Howard and Alicia Hudson. That will take us until 2:30. Then we're passing it over to Sarah Davis with her session on QuickSight, and that will be from 2:30 to 4:00 p.m. And then finally, we're rounding out the day with a DNA portal session by Rafaela Hunter, and that will take us until 5:00 today. Tomorrow's sessions will kick things off with the introduction to R coding and Databricks presented by Kyle Webb from 1:00 to 2:00. And then Derek Cookshank will be sharing introduction to Python coding and Databricks at 2 to 3:00 p.m. And then an additional session by Derek with Python coding for SAS programmers. And then finally, we'll be rounding out our data camp with introduction to machine learning using Python and Databricks by Deshane Joseph. And that will be from 4 to 4:45 p.m. Okay, so for our first session, we're going to kick things off with the CCSQ DNA roadmap and vision. This session will be presented by two speakers. The first is Kenneth Howard, Director of Division of Quality Systems Governance, Engineering and Development for CMS. And then also Alicia Hudson, CCSQ Data and Analytics Program Lead. We're going to review our agenda for this session, and then I'll pass things over to Ken. So they're going to be reviewing today the CCSQ vision, the DNA vision and strategy, a recap of recently released features, the near-term features, and key feedback from users. So now I'll be passing things over to Ken.
Hey, good afternoon, all. It's good to see a pretty good turnout today. Our data camps are typically well favored in the community. So before I start off in the official slides, I do encourage everyone to give us a feedback on that, both of the timing of this event, on the length of these events, the session qualities. We would love to hear your feedback in order to improve these in the future and make them valuable to our community. Next slide, please. So just a quick touch point on the vision, both CCSQ and ISG, pretty standard. Most people have probably seen this in one way, shape, or form going forward with is what is the purpose of CCSQ, and in particular, our support of the vision. And it is improve healthcare outcomes, beneficiary experience of care, and population health while reducing healthcare costs. improving all the quality, clinical medical sciences, survey, certification, policies, et cetera, right? And improving. That's what typically this community does for us. So we wish to provide the necessary tools to achieve this vision. Next slide, please. So with that said, I'll touch on it. Next slide. So if anybody heard me speak at the QualityNet conference this year, this will be a familiar topic. Those that are new to this, it might be something for you to pay attention to, is a primary philosophy of CCSQ with the new tooling available to us in our environment is come to the data. And what does that mean? Come to the data is specifically less egress of our quality data to external entities. So we can, next slide, we'll probably touch on that. So we can get more transparency, more understanding of the data, how it's being used, what is the value of the data, is there any improvements to the data, reporting, contracts, et cetera, that come out of it because of that transparency, seeing how the data is used. It reduces data duplication with coming to the data, no more snap session times, no more extracts. It's all readily available within the CDR. Maintain the security of the data, i.e. keep it within our FSMA boundary. So again, we can know what's happening with the data, whether there is proper or improper usage of the data going forward. Right now, once it's exited from our environment, we have little to no insight into what happens with the data, how it's being used, if it is the current data being quoted, if it's been manipulated, et cetera. Visibility, again, how much usage is done out of the reporting that we have, who's looking at it, what outcomes we're getting from any deliverables, any analytics, any evaluation, any feedback that we get from both our contractual community and our program partners to make sure that what is being produced is valuable for their programs. And improving overall the CDR environment, right, is adding more tools, removing unused tools, and providing better and better support of what tools are valued within our environment. Again, from an enterprise perspective, is what can we bring to the community to make their day better, make the outcomes better, and to support the vision of both CMS and CCSQ. And again, this one I can't emphasize enough. It's really what's driving the come to the data mindset. It's keeping that extreme high level of data security. We have got to know where our data is going, who has it, what's being done with it, is it being destroyed, is it being shared with others, et cetera. This is really driving a lot of the come to the data. I think you'll find it's going to be pretty holistic among CMS and other sister organizations within HHS. Next slide. So come to the data, who, what, why, right? So this is the simplistic explanation is all users of the CDR, all program support contractors should start looking at and using the CDR if you are not today. A lot of people have already converted to this philosophy, so it's a redundant message for you if you have, and I thank you wholeheartedly for embracing this philosophy. It supports our general move off of SAS into other analytic tool sets that have a more supportable skill set in our community, right? Data scientists using R, Python, PySpark, SQL, instead of specifically knowing SAS language and SAS specificity. This is a main driver for us in moving towards our future goals. It will allow us to bring more agnostic tools to the table instead of more proprietary tools to the table. Increase visibility and transparency into our tooling. I can't say that you will hear that as a reoccurring message from probably last February to now, right? This is important. We don't know what to improve if we don't know what's being used. So this why is another large driver for us is CCSQ understanding how our data is being used and the outcomes of that data to better support improving that data quality, improving our quality reporting programs to improve our nursing home and survey and cert folks, and to make sure what we're asking, what data we're getting is valuable. And if there's any changes in those programs, this data supports that downstream, or I even say upstream impact, to make sure we keep that circle going about the quality of our data. To better explain what data we're collecting is based on how our analytic community uses this data. So we wish to complete that circle and improve it. If it exits our site, we don't get that input. We just see the output of what you all do, and we want to see the entire structure and how the data is being used, managed, and maintained. We look for your partnership in this, is to be able to express to us what is and is not valuable with our data, so we can align this again as an enterprise service and make sure that it is supporting all of our programs, not just one specific. And enforcing come to data philosophy, we not only reduce data loss, but it also improves the overall data security and insight, right? Again, you'll hear this multiple times and consistently from here on out with it. Next slide, please. I will address the questions. I did see that question pop up. I will address that. So we're going to reduce siloed data. Again, many extracts are generated. Many analytic teams generate their own data and store it both short and long term. We want to understand how and why that's being done, so we can better make the CDR a better environment for that behavior, right? So this will give us that insight. It'll let us move the CDR in a direction that's more supportive, instead of, again, the CDR working arbitrarily, not in sync with our analytic community. Eliminate the need to download data to perform analysis. Again, data exfiltration. We want to reduce that. It will basically be use the CDR unless you have permission to not use the CDR and exfiltrate data. We want to make sure that we're meeting your program and contractual needs. So if at any moment you have a concern about this, you are to reach out to your cores, engage your cores, and we'll all sit down and have that conversation about what this means to you, and timetables and matching and technologies to make sure we can support you. Custom extracts, like I said, we used to have probably close to 100 unique extracts in our environment. When the CDR came in, we probably have dozens of extracts in our environment, and we hope to continue a downward trend of the use of extracts. Allow you to do your own analytics and customize your own data for your own specific program support needs. In streamlining the process of accessing data, I think the roadmap and a portal discussion will lead into this particular bullet. We are bringing on that technology to allow a lot more self-service capabilities for you to request access to data, to approve others to see the data you create, to provide dashboarding capabilities. I saw that Sarah has a quick site. So there are tools to make these things available and to change kind of the approach we are doing about sharing our information. The simple example I have, creating a PDF, emailing it out to 10,000 people. I don't even know how many of those 10,000 people look at that PDF, right? So just meant as an example, not a specific call out. So this will allow us to put it on a medium or a platform that allows us to see who and how often is looking at our particular data sets going forward, as an example. Next slide. So looking to the future, this is one of the main drivers for us moving, is we want to get to a more agnostic coding and development set, right? So Python, R, SQL, more generic terms, both, potentially SageMaker. Databricks is the tooling that we have currently in place for our next generation of analytics. We are continuing to explore other tools and based on your feedback and implement more, but the core of this is supporting that agnostic world, the more modern education medium. Having a son who recently graduated college in the IT field, in the computer science field, these were native to his education. I know we've got several federal data scientists who've come on board in the past couple of years. Again, the expression of these are native skill sets coming out of college space. We CCSQ want to move in that direction to support what the upcoming education and community technology sets that are available out there. Next slide, please. And the outcome statement that I made earlier, again, in order for us to have a continual improvement cycle, we need to understand what is being created, who is consuming it, and where the data can mature within the programs, within the third parties that provide us data for your analytic capabilities, and make sure that we are continually improving that data quality, whether that's in the data dictionaries and clarity, whether that's an alignment of the standardized schemas, something like FHIR or something like that, or just even a generalized standard schema in order for us to better share things. That's what we're trying to determine, what that path looks like and how we can better support you all, because the more clear our data is, the better the outcome of the production. There's less specialized domain knowledge needed if we get to a cleaner data environment. That is our ideal state, and our ultimate goal here is to improve that through iterations, not drastic, not all at once, because that, again, we're not trying to be disruptive. We are just trying to improve our outcomes. Next slide. So touching on just some raw statistics, this slide I asked them to go in, it's important that you have a holistic view of the overall CDR environment, what we do, and we're growing. With the come to the data philosophy that we have, this is going to be impacted. It's only going to go up. We want to make sure our environment is scaled. We want to understand the specifics of your work, so we can scale to that specifics of your work. Make sure the tooling that we're getting it meets that individual need as well as the enterprise need, and that's what is going. But with the enterprise approach, we have roughly 2,300 individual users within the CDR environment. I would say roughly 1,000 to 1,200 of those are cubic users who run some standardized scripts and to get standardized reports. The rest of them are data analysts or data scientists, right? Various organizations supporting various program requirements and contracts. So we have mixed breed. That 2,300, some of that portion has both access to SAS and Databricks, right? So as you see, there's some overlap there, and growing into the Databricks arena. We hope to see that number go up significantly with a move to the non-SAS platform. 5,000 to 60,000, or 50,000 to 60,000 jobs run per quarter, right? So it's not an insignificant number of jobs being run. You can see with the smaller subset, just with the short term that we've had Databricks available, a significant number of jobs are already running over on the Databricks side of things. And the kicker there is, whereas SAS is configured as kind of a semi-monolithic platform where individual users can bring down the platform, say with bad query, you can suck up all the resources and whatnot. Databricks in the Python world is individual compute, and in the R world is organization-based compute. So you can't impact another organization if something, you do a bad query, right? A star select on claims or something. You actually, minimize the exposure and impacting of other organizations. That's a big win for CMS, right? So we're isolating down trouble points, pain points, improving the technology and run times of that technology. So if you need assistance in education into use of this tooling or our Python conversion of your SAS, please reach out to us. We will provide assistance where needed. We will provide guidance where needed, individual to your programs or contracts, and help that ease that migration of the tooling if necessary here. Even there's changes within SAS for the short term to help get off of Embari and Hive into our new SQL engine, Databricks SQL engine with that coding, but that'll be touched on later with another session. 1,300 distinct Databricks notebooks, again, just showing the growing use of the community. We basically have had Databricks for the community, 6-ish months. Right, so we're already overtaking a lot of the job statistics, and we currently support 153 unique organizations within our environment. So as you see, it's not insignificant numbers with the architecture and technology that we're currently supporting, and we want to move towards supporting this, with your feedback going forward. Next slide, I believe. Alyssa, is this one yours? Yep.
Yep. Yeah. So I will take it from here. Welcome, everyone. We'll recap a little bit of the recently released features that we've had, as well as talk about some of the upcoming features that are on the horizon. Next slide, please. So with our tools, we've recently released, as Ken mentioned, the Databricks SQL Notebook solution. That solution is replacing our SAS to Embari connection that we've had previously. That allows users to leverage SAS code, but leverage that compute power of Databricks to run your queries faster and get more performance and have a more scalable solution, where Embari was pretty much set a certain threshold. If users had run something that took up a lot of memory, it could cause a crash for the entire community. Databricks scales on demand, so that becomes a non-issue with that platform. So really hoping to get users moved over to that platform. We'll talk a little bit more in later slides about what that'll look like. You're also able to output SAS via query data into Databricks tables, similar to how you do today with Embari and Hive. So that's the goal behind that solution. Additionally, we released the Lustre file system, and the intent behind this was to move away from the storage gateway file system that was previously in place that was pretty unstable. A lot of our outages with SAS prior to this change were heavily involved with the storage gateways. So it might manifest itself in the SAS UI, but it was actually a symptom of issues we were having with storage gateway quite a bit. So this has stabilized the file system. It's made it more performant to be writing, things to Workbench and reading from Workbench, etc. So faster reads and writes. Hopefully you guys are experiencing all of that. We have seen a lot less outages within the last couple months. So those are realized gains from this. We will continue to work on additional stabilization efforts here as well. Next is the new data sets. So we've released 4 major new data sets to the CDR since the last Datacamp. We've got the iKeys provider data. We've got the EQRS clinical data. We've got the hospital quality reporting, value-based purchasing data that was recently released. And then we've got the acute care, hospital care at home, or ACA data that was recently released as well. Next slide. So the other things that we worked on that we've recently released is some changes to data storage. So we've done migrations to get all the data out of the HDFS or Hadoop distributed file system and get that data moved into simple storage services, or S3. S3 gives us better capability to back up your data, to have redundancy, to make sure that we have that data security and ability to make sure that there's no data loss. So that has been completed. We also, as we did that, did some environment consolidation in S3. So instead of having an S3 for each organization, we consolidated those into a single S3 with subfolders, making that easier to manage as well. We created the CDR Lakehouse. This will be where all of the CDR data will reside. And we have started migrations of user data. So that first piece is the CDR data. The second piece is your user data being migrated to the Lakehouse as well. So that is steps that have been completed. We also did quite a bit of changes to the CCSQ Data Analytics page that we use on Confluence. We did a full review and update of the content to make sure it's all accurate and understandable. So we've made a lot of improvements there. We have released some standards documentation. We'll have more of this coming, but we've released a few standards documentations around our contribution process, as well as I think that's the main one at this point. And then we've also done a data space usability study where we talked with users in the community that volunteered to understand a little bit more about the use cases and how you use our system. As Ken mentioned earlier, we have high interest in understanding what your use cases are, so we can make sure we provide a platform that allows you to come to the data and perform all of your functions within the environment, ideally. And then we increased training in general, but we started to do a concept with micro trainings. We've also since added a few more comprehensive trainings based on user feedback. So trying to offer a balance of little short micro trainings as well as comprehensive trainings on Databricks, SaaS, all of the platform capabilities that we have. Next slide. All right, so near-term feature releases. So for tools, we're looking at enabling Unity Catalog, and that in itself is probably nothing that you would be interested in. However, there are many Databricks notebook features that require Unity Catalog in order to be enabled. So it'll give you more capabilities within the Databricks notebook side. So that is on the horizon. Databricks structured language, the SQL warehouse clusters. So right now, our solution for SaaS with Databricks integration is a SQL notebook cluster that is shared across the community. We plan to move to the SQL warehouse where we would have organizational level compute similar to the notebook side. So that again would isolate the queries and compute to an organization level versus all users that are using that connection. So that's another improvement coming on the horizon. There's a qualitative analysis pilot. So we're looking at a tool to analyze unstructured data. So that'll be something coming up that we will pilot. And then a data catalog pilot, which is intending to find a data catalog tool that can improve our data documentation for the CDR, make it more searchable across data sets, allow for gathering of data lineage information and additional metadata beyond what we have today. And also, make that implementation and enforcement of metadata quality standards in place as well. So being able to get a little bit more consistent documentation, regardless of line of business it's coming from. So those are on the horizon. Next slide. All right. So for Portal, you'll hear more in a session later this afternoon on Portal, but high level, that Portal is going to be rolling out shortly with some data use agreement or DUA upload capabilities that will allow you to upload your DUA when you've had your annual extensions or your newly onboarding, or you've just decided you need some additional data sets added to your DUA. You'll have the capability to upload that document to a portal. That PDF of your DUA would be parsed and your access would be granted based on it. So it kind of automates the access control pieces based on the DUA. It makes that quicker turnaround in terms of adding new data sets. The My Access page will also be there, and that's basically just going to give users insight into what access your organization has. And then there will be like a centralized landing page where all of the CCSQ DNA tools will be available. So you can select those from that landing page and have one centralized place for all your tools. And then we will be working in the near term on migrating all of the content off of the CCSQ DNA Confluence page to a public portal website that will allow us to have some additional capabilities that we've been limited with Confluence. So that's going to give some additional metrics related capabilities, ability to collect more information from you as users, to understand what's helpful, what's not helpful, what you would like to see, things of that nature. And then we will be adding some DUA notifications and alerts. So if you are a DUA owner today, you know that you get notifications from EPI when your DUA is going to expire. We're going to have similar alerts that will be sent out through email, as well as some banners and things within the application that will let you know that your DUA is approaching expiration and needs to be renewed. So those will be added as well. Next slide. All right. So for data storage, we are going to be working on the Hive to Glue migration. You've probably heard us talk a little bit of that. We need to get the Embare decommission done first. So next, after the Embare decommission, will be to migrate all of the metadata from Hive to Glue. And then we will migrate to Delta tables used by Databricks. So that's a migration of data from Parquet to Delta tables. And that will further enable a lot of this SQL warehouse functions and things that we talked about earlier with Databricks as well. And then it'll also, Delta tables also give the ability to pull historical data using point in time logic. So that's a kind of pro to having our data in Delta tables versus Parquet. In relation to data governance and standards, we're going to be putting out some documentation on our data contribution standards. Like I said, that actually just recently got released. We're going to put some guidance out in terms of data sharing that will allow organizations to be able to share between organizations according to a set of standards. We definitely will have quality standards in place for all of our data contributors adding data to the CDR to make sure that we have high quality data as well as high quality metadata for understanding the data that you're working with. Next slide. All right. So the next one is training. So we've been doing a lot with training in the last year. We want to increase our training in an interactive mode. So we'll be trying some different methods to have more interactive training with the community versus just videos and demonstrations and knowledge-based articles. So we'll be looking to try some interactive sessions and get your feedback on the effectiveness of those. We're trying to look at some additional comprehensive training. So thinking about what a curriculum would look like for a new tool or a existing tool, in addition to those micro trainings we mentioned. So we'll continue to add lots of those micro trainings, but we'll also try to have more comprehensive trainings too, so that we can meet both needs. And then we'll increase the knowledge base articles as well, so that if users want to use a written guide, they have those offerings as well. And then for collaboration, we're going to do a couple things. So we're going to be offering some office hours on certain topics. We'll get into that a little bit here in a future slide on a coming topic. We also are going to try to start some communities of practice where we can leverage you all to support each other in certain communities of practice. So we'll get those up and running. And then we are looking with the portal to introduce some forums in ways for you all to communicate with each other, to do some code collaboration, answer questions about data sets and things like that. So these are all things that are on the horizon for us to allow for you all to work across the community and support each other in addition to the support you receive from us. Next slide. All right, so Embari decommission. We are targeting a 12/31 full decommission of Embari. In order to do that, the team has been developing a couple macros to support writing data to and from Hive. We've had some issues with that from our end users, and we've been trying out some different drivers and things. We are very close to those macros being complete. We anticipate making those available to the community by the 27th of November. And we will have knowledge base articles that outline how to call the macro and what updates are needed to the code. And then we are going to be reaching out to different organizations and coordinating with you to set up some office hours at the organization level, or we might group a couple organizations together to allow support for using these macros and getting your code modified to move off of the SAS to Embari to the SAS to Databricks. So look for that. You'll be getting some outreach from our team, requesting some availability to schedule those hours and have them be available to you. What those will look like will definitely make sure that you have the training and everything ahead of time. And then during these sessions, we'll ask that you come prepared with questions that you have, and we can work through those with you directly, so that you're getting quick support to help that migration go quickly. All right, next slide. I think that might be okay. So next would be feedback survey. So if you can go to the next slide. So, or sorry, we haven't got a feedback survey yet. This is some recent feedback from users. So we have heard that you need us to improve the metadata through easy access information about the data stored in the CDR. So that's been a constant theme of getting better quality metadata so that you understand the data that you are working with. So we are continuing to work with that, as I had mentioned, with the data catalog and some other standards. Improving SAS system stability through increased uptime, performance, and accessibility. We understand the instability at times of SAS, and we're working on multiple avenues to stabilize that in the short term. As well, the additional Databricks training. So there's different features in Databricks that we'll be rolling out, like I mentioned with the Unity catalog. There's also just a lot of training that can be made available to the community in general with Databricks notebooks. So we'll be doing some of that. As was mentioned earlier in this presentation, there's also going to be some presentations on R and Python that will help support the community with use of Databricks notebooks as well. We know that we hear that you have a need for code samples and the ability to collaborate on code. So again, we've heard that need, and we hope to accomplish that with a couple different methods through the portal in the future. And then we understand that you want more training on data sources, including background and nuances in data. So we'll try to work with the different lines of business to provide some training on specific data sets. We can do some training on claims and things of that nature, but it sounds like the community is looking for more training in terms of information about the data and how it's used and the nuances with it. All right, next slide. So now we're going to do the monthly satisfaction survey that we typically do during our town hall sessions. We want to keep gaining that feedback from you. So the survey will open up in a moment in the Zoom poll. You'll have about 5 to 6 minutes to answer the questions. Make sure you scroll all the way down so that you can complete the questions before you hit submit at the bottom. And then after the time is ended, the poll will be closing. The results will be used to improve our tools, training, and offerings. So there are some short answer questions there. Make sure that you fill those out as completely as you can in the time frame. All right.
We're about 1 minute in. Just a reminder to please scroll all the way down so you don't miss any questions, and we'll have about 5 or 6 minutes remaining. Just a time check, we're about halfway through. One more minute to wrap up. Fifteen more seconds. Thanks so much. Okay, so now we're going to move over to our Q&A. So I'll be taking some of the questions from the chat that we've had throughout the presentation, reading them out loud, and then our presenters will be answering them as we go. So our first question, is the plan to move off of SaaS completely or just expand to include other options?
So great question. So keeping in context, that is what we know today. Things change. So with that context. So the intent is to carry our current version of SaaS VIA, which is 3.5, and maintaining it through 2025. There is no plans to move beyond that. So as of today. With that, we should plan accordingly. If things change, we will bring it back to the community, in the CDR community, and update everybody on that. But as of today, we are looking at ways of migration and moving off of the SaaS standard platform. SaaS VIA 3.5 becomes end of support in I believe February of 25, and we will continue support of that product through 25 in order to maintain it. But it's going to become end of life very soon. After that point, we don't want to keep an end of life product in our environment.
Thanks, Ken. This may be on a future slide, so it might have already been answered. But what is the timeline to move off of SaaS?
Yeah, so I think I just expressed that. So that time frame is, we're pretty much pretty committed to keeping SaaS VIA 3.5 online and operational through 2025.
Okay. Moving off of SaaS 9.4 and keep SaaS VIA, or eliminate SaaS altogether. What about new SaaS Workbench versus and VS capabilities?
So it's kind of a tricky answer here, but I'll try and get it. It's not like a one size fits all answer to this question. So we currently, with single digit exceptions, don't have 9.4 in the CCSQ environment. And I'm speaking specifically for the CCSQ environment, the CDR in particular. I believe there are a few 9.4 workstations out there. That's contract specific and whether that is maintained and funded. SAS VIA is all I'm speaking to, the CDR technology stack and architecture. So it is, again, through 2025 that we plan to keep the environment online and available, but with reduced onboarding. We're going to do a case by case about use of this. New contracts will have new language about using R and Python and other technologies.
How do we get reports to our participants?
So again, I think there's an asterisk at the end of this answer because everybody has a unique community they present to. Because I think it's tied. There's another question down about the states and accessibility to reports. So it kind of will tie into that question as well. Is that mainly we can provide, if it's static reporting and static content, we'll have both the new portal coming up to provide access to those portals. We can use the Quality Net portal as a static, depending on what program you are and whether pages need to be, or if it's a more dynamic reporting, we have QuickSight capability, and in the future, some other reporting capability to provide that insight and data visibility functionality. So it depends on what you're delivering and to whom, what answer that would be.
And just to add to that, Ken, I put this in the chat too, but QuickSight does offer the ability to embed dashboards in existing systems. So if you have an existing system that you operate, that your users retrieve reports from today, and there isn't a capability within QuickSight to be able to embed dashboards directly in that, so that users don't actually have to go to QuickSight to get the dashboard. They can actually get it from another system as an embedded dashboard. And
the Fed in me has to say, if that website is within a FSMA boundary.
Right.
So there is a caveat to that. So so again, I think there's kind of a semi-unique answer for every person. Again, the intent there is to get more transparency about who is looking at the reports and the quality of them. So we want to put them on a medium at which we can get those metrics and those statistics about the usage of them. Going in the future. So the state-based systems and stuff like that, a lot of that goes through iKeys, and it's really a question of whether this is a standalone report going out to that community, or it is something that needs to be a future enhancement to iKeys that needs to be determined through those programs.
Thanks. Will this Databricks SQL notebook solution resolve the slow performance of pushing SAS data tables to Databricks?
I think I know who you are. There's a unique situation, a specific use case, the use of SAS to the Databricks SQL, where there's a slow performance in the connector or the driver for that connectivity. We're working on a solution to that. And I believe it's a common library language that's being put together, a Python script to help remediate that particular impact. So that is unique between that type of SAS behavior and the Databricks SQL. So if you were purely in Databricks using notebooks and ours, you would not have that performance issue. It would be native functionality within the product. So that is a pretty unique situation in this behavior pattern. And I believe the team is already working with you to try and find a resolution to your specific way that you're trying to populate some tables.
Any plans to add Medicare Advantage claims data to CCSQ CDR? Any plans to add the CCSQ CDR, any ICD-10 diagnosis code, ICD-10 procedure code, or FDA National Drug Code classification grouper tools to assign a code to a general category and help standardize processing of claims data?
That's a lot right there. So
sorry.
That's okay. I can go through and say yes, no, no, yes, no, but it really, yes, we are working on Part C data coming into the environment. It will be secured, so you will need the necessary business justification and DUA entries and et cetera to get access to it. How we're getting access to it, we're literally in negotiations with the Part C folks to figure out how best to get access to it, whether that is a direct connection in or to the IDR or a separate file load to make it available in its raw format is to be determined. But it is our intent for future data set and in negotiations to expand to that data set. It's a big want item for multiple programs, so we're looking into it. ICD-10, if there's an author of those particular owners, we'll take this as an action and get you specific feedback to that. We can certainly, if it's available out in our community, see about adding it to our repository. FDA, again, same kind of ruling. If it's public data, a non-proprietary data, we can look to add it to our environment. If it is proprietary, we got to work towards interagency agreements to get to some of that more proprietary information. So I think we'll take an action and look into what category that particular data set. I'm not familiar with it. I apologize. And grouper tools have always been a fun conversation. I've been dealing with that probably for more than 15 years with various grouper tools that are out there. So the simple answer is a lot of those groupers are very specific in what they're using and grouping. I would say not at this time. There is a plan to use that functionality, but the use case is something we should probably explore. Is there an enhancement that we need to look at for future state? But as of right now, there's no plans that I'm tracking to or aware of around a grouper.
One thing to add there, Ken, we do have the MSDRG grouper.
There you go. So again, the statements are pretty, there's an asterisk at the end. There might be a unique, there's like 10 groupers out there and for very specific use cases. So thank you, Alicia.
Yep.
Thank you. Will there be group Databricks training or online training available?
Yes. So we, again, part of the portal is in improving and increasing our training tool sets. Databricks vendor is working very closely with us in providing relevant training items with it. And my QDAS team is working on making that training even more specific to how it works in our environment. So we are looking to have both all types of contents, from videos to white papers to whatever documentation is necessary to make you all successful. And there will even be, we're talking about brown bags, our office hours and things like that to better educate the community, address your specific needs, and have a dedicated support channel where if you have a unique need, you can bring that up and we can help and assist you with that migration. So we have multiple avenues for education, training, and support.
Where is Python being used here for analytics, and which libraries / what version? What is the volume of data that we're dealing with here?
Well, so the volume of data is based on your DUA and what information you have. So the CDR has roughly a petabyte of data sitting into it between our standard data sets and the Workbench data, right? So a significant amount of data. So what you have access to is kind of hard to quantify here. But Python is being used, throughout the Databricks notebook capabilities, right? So there's a mixture of R and Python in there. Which language is used is dependent on your specific analytic use case. So I think that's what we need to determine. If you have a specific question about what is the right tool, please open up and take it. We're more than happy to help you with, figuring out and assisting you in that area. Libraries is pretty open. You can, there's no restrictions as of yet about which libraries can be leveraged because it's all running within our FSMA boundary. And you would be able to add those in. Of course, maybe exceptions. I always got to say that as we discover and go along this road, because there's thousands of libraries available for this. So depending on your use case, which libraries you're talking about, we'd be happy to work with you and figure that out.
Besides MDS data, is Oasis data going to be compatible with Databricks?
So that's specific to the issues, Ken, that we have with a few of the Parquet files. So it's the same answer as the MDS question. So we're working with the Databricks vendor to determine what the issue is with Parquet. It is related to the Parquet format that we're having that issue with. So we're working with Databricks. So the intent is, yes, that will be resolved. If not, converting those files from Databricks to Delta tables would resolve the issue.
And there's, on top of that, there's continual improvement with the IQs product, which Oasis and Casper and Aspen all fall within that program component and area, is that they're constantly migration and moving of that data set to the IQs data set, i.e. the new MDS files that are out there. So eventually all that ends up in that MDS. So again, that might be 2028 or something like that is a final date for the completion of it, but it's progression between now and then.
Thank you. Are any of the large text-based data sets, such as the statements of deficiencies 2567S, available in the CDR holdings?
So simply put, the answer is yes. We currently have an AIM contractor who's working on the 2567s for natural language processing and sentiment analysis and some other output that they're doing. Again, we need to look at a data access request, see if you qualify to get to that data, but the data is there.
And I also posted, this is Mohammed Bizri, with the CDR team. I also posted the request form link in the chat. So if you have any data needs or functionality needs for that matter, such as file transfers we were discussing earlier, or assistance with reports, please take some time to fill out that request form with your use case and your contact information, and we'll be happy to work with your team and see what the best solution can be.
Thank you, Mohammed. Excellent point.
Any chance you could provide the big picture? CMS has CCW, IDR, and CDR. What is the future of CCW and IDR?
So I cannot speak to them. So each one of those serves a specific community and purpose. So CCW is typically for a researcher community. All the data is transformed, modeled, and made available to that community. Right, they pay a seat license to get into the CCW and access that data. They follow DUA processes to get that data. We service primarily our quality improvement organizations, the QUINs, the dedicated analytic contractors directly for our programs. We have that closed community, so it doesn't fit the CCW model very well. IDR has limited data sets compared to our quality data sets. They do have some critical data sets, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to downplay that, but so we are looking at establishing a connection between our CDR and the IDR. We expect that to come online sometime next year. They are currently prioritizing the IDR moving to their cloud solution, the Snowflake solution, which is, I believe, supposed to be done, last I heard, this month. So we are then engaging early next year in what it would take for us to connect our Databricks or our CDR environment to the Snowflake/IDR environment. We do share a few data sets with the CCW. They author a couple files. We get those files and they are available within the CDR as well. So there is a partnership. We do share information, just not at scale yet. There's onesie twosies in the approach to it, but it is growing. Like I said, I think once we get that connection between the CDR and the IDR established, it will change that dynamic, and that's next year.
Do you offer other analytical tools in SAS Viya, such as SAS Visual Analytics, SAS Text Miner, etc.?
So we have visual analytics, but I think we only have one group using it on any relative scale. It is not, there's a limited license set to get to that tooling for the environment. And at this particular point, I would discourage the expansion and usage of that tool, knowing the direction we are ultimately going, because there is a limited number of people, like program folks, who have access to SAS, right? So using a SAS tool to do visual analytics can be somewhat limiting factor here, and performance impacts as well on it. But, let's just discuss your use case. If it's something you need to do, it's on the table. We just want to understand why that's the only tool of choice. And then we go from there, we figure out what the right solution space is.
And ultimately, our enterprise solution for dashboarding and visual analytics is currently QuickSight. And so if your team has any reporting or dashboarding needs, please reach out. We'll be happy to work with you and the STAR team in getting you the access that you need.
But to the earlier point, there is also Databricks libraries that allow visualization of the content as well that are also a candidate for you here. Again, depending on what audience you're trying to deliver the content to, I think is what the answer is.
Will QRDA collected from QPP / MIPS program be available in the CDR?
I'm trying to find that question.
Yeah, they're asking about QPP MIPS data. So we do have the QPP UDS data today. We don't have any current communication with the QPP team to receive additional data sets at the moment. But if there is a data set that you're interested in, that you need, similar to what we've been saying, go ahead and submit a request and we'll work with that team to see if that can be added to future data sets.
That sounds accurate to me. So yeah, but all of our data we currently load is at the QPP UDS. Absolutely.
You mentioned that you would decommission Embari after you guys work better with SAS. Is it working better with SAS now?
Might be something out of context there. So Embari, we are going to decommission Embari on 12/31, right? So if you are currently using any of your SAS to access Embari, we need to work with you to get you off of that. It is at this point a security risk for us. Maintenance and patching of that particular platform is becoming somewhat of a challenge. It's becoming somewhat burdensome. With the exception of one use case, it's not as performant with the environment. So that's what the Databricks SQL is supposed to be supporting. It allows our scalability much more efficiently with us going forward. Again, with the exception of that one use case. Go ahead.
And the macros for that use case will be available on the 27th of November. So they will be available very soon. We're working on that.
Thank you. When will R have access to the CDR?
Right now.
It's actually not true. So if they can't actually access the CDR through CDR data sets through R, that is an issue. It is related to some of the other changes that we need to make with Databricks. So it is on the horizon, but it is not directly available today. So I think there's ways to get around that. If you need some assistance, again, please reach out. But that direct connection between R and CDR is not there right now.
I apologize for the misinformation.
Could you please guide us to get coding help to develop MDS quality matrix? Thank you.
I think the QualityNet service desk, putting in your specific, send an email. Again, this team will give you all the contact information. Open up the request, and we will have a corresponding outreach and support for this particular type of work. If you need any advice, input, clarity, assistance in coding recommendations, the team can help you with that. Because your use case will be very specific, we want to make sure we address it.
Okay, I think at that point, that rounds out our questions. Okay, sorry, just a couple more in the chat, but I think at this point, that's all of the questions that people are waiting answers on. We will get the answers published to this on the individual sections on our Confluence space, and that will be available after our Datacamp concludes. So now coming up next, we have a session on QuickSight. So prior to that, thank you so much to Alicia and Ken for presenting today. And thank you for answering all of our questions. Our QuickSight session will be beginning at 2:30 and is presented by Sarah Davis. We'll be taking about a 25-minute break until that session begins. So as soon as this one wraps, we'll get a timer up, get that session started at 2:30, and we hope that everyone can join us then. Thank you so much.